Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Devil's Latest Issue podcast. I'm your host. I'm Mr. Vegas. Mr. Vegas must apologize for the delay in the intro there. Mr. Vegas was still chewing when we came live. Mr. Vegas was still eating a biscuit.
Are you chewing, boy? It's the worst
yes,
blood of holiday.
I'm chewing. I have millionaire shortbread. Leave me alone. I'm joined as always. I'm joined as always by my wonderful co-host, Mr. Fat Man T.
Hello.
We've been on the air 3 seconds. It's already falling apart, and it is my fault this week. I'm also joined by our regularly occurring other co-host. It's the funny fuck. I'm tired. I give up. It's Echo.
Awoo.
Make your own jokes in the comments for the intro. You're not getting my ones this week. I'm too tired to think of them.
This sounds a bad joke. Fat Man the Furry and the femboy walking to a bar.
Fat Man, a furry, and a femboy walk into a bar.
And we want to make it really accurate. A Viking, a furry, and a femboy enter the bar.
Yeah, true.
That's pretty much how this podcast got started. A Viking and a femboy met in a Discord server. Well, a PlayStation party, but same difference.
And now a furry has joined the mix.
Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, tell the show, my friends. Feel at home. We are.
What did you even name this? I've realized I left you unattended to name this. There's a good chance you've got us in trouble already.
Honestly, I just named it the.
I don't believe you. I'm checking. Like, don't even bother. I'm filling it up in the background.
That's not bad.
Okay, yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah.
Wait, what did he name it?
What we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Breaking down the Supreme Court.
Right. So, how do we start this? Oh fuck! We're all going down.
Well, let's start with something happy first. Now, because I want to brace my system for today.
General news then.
So WrestleMania is tomorrow. And that's why we're doing the show tonight instead of tomorrow night. Because it's WrestleMania tomorrow. And frankly, folks at home, I love you. And T loves you. But I
don't love you.
I love WrestleMania a lot more than I love the good people at home or Echo. Frankly, I love WrestleMania more than I love Fat Man T. And I live with Fat Man T.
What about Inky? Do you love WrestleMania more than Inky?
You're goddamn right I do. Gamer, I won't lie. Tomorrow night, 10:30 p.m. my time, I will be turning off my phone and computer. So, if
leave your phone on just in case we have I leave your phone on in case we have a situation with Inky.
No, it's getting turned off. I don't give a fuck. I love y'all, but I love WrestleMania a lot more. Like I usually tell all of my friends around this time of year, hey, it's WrestleMania. Do not bother me on these 2 days, or I will hurt you. And it never works. Someone always tries. So this year I'm just turning off my electronics. So if there is a desperate emergency and you desperately need to get in contact with me, direct message Fat Man T. But if it's not a dire emergency, by which I mean it's the same as the 9 o'clock rule. If someone is not dead or fucking dying, they will be.
So good news, our new project's coming along smoothly.
Yes.
That's smooth as we cap that would start off as a joke, then not way too serious.
That's ADHD for you.
Okay, let's just dive right into this topic.
Yeah, fuck it.
Because it's going to be most of the show trying to
I don't even know what this is about. I don't even know what this is about. I'm just.
All right, let me take the lead here, Batman T, for a second. Let me do the intro.
I'll do the intro this because then you can follow in after because I'll give it a very plain context.
No. Like let me do the funny introduction, then you can do the proper one, okay?
Okay.
Okay. So Echo, You,
Yeah.
you know trans rights, yeah?
Yeah.
Yep. You know how trans people they're entitled to exist, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, the British government doesn't agree with you anymore. Discuss.
Fuck.
Okay,
There you go, Fat Man. It's your cue now.
thank you for that.
Have at it.
Yesterday, at the right about time of 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, I sat in my chair, put my PC up, and turned to my YouTube channels, as I usually do. Check the bits of news.
He had a wank while doing so. You know, standard stuff for 8 o'clock in the morning on a Wednesday.
Please don't, Scotty. Please don't like make me laugh while I'm trying to take a drink of my calypso. Please.
I'm gonna make you drown.
And as I was flicking through the news feeds, up popped a live stream directly from the Telegraph, which was live streaming a Supreme Court decision. Now, this is rare for two things. One, nearly nothing gets live streamed from the Supreme Court at all.
Yeah, our Supreme Court doesn't really do live.
And second, the Telegraph was not producing out something else total bullshit. Go figure. Now, what this led to, it was one of the single most memorable discoveries I've had in my life.
Wait, what was it? Translate, Scotty.
Hang on, I can't get my biscuits open. Wait. My box of biscuits won't open.
Haha.
I need an adult. This isn't even a bit. I'm genuinely trying to open this box and I can't find the lip. Help. I've been sat for like 5 minutes quietly trying to pull open this box. It won't go. Please. I want a cookie. Please. Please, I want a cookie. I found it. I got the lip. Yes, it's open. Yes. I got it.
Watch now, drop the drop the box on the floor and the dog eat them all.
I think the dog's with you, is he not?
I have no idea where the dog is.
He's not in my room, so I got the cookies open. Yes. Hooray, hero.
Anyway, back to what I was trying to say.
Sorry.
For the great cookie incident. Essentially, it was the Supreme Court criminal decision on the case of the, what was this again? There it is. The four women Scotland versus the Scottish ministers. In a decision to determine what is a woman, essentially. And the decision they came to was a woman only refers to someone biologically born female. Not trans.
This is wrong for a multitude of reasons.
Right. Now, I have in front of me.
Okay, I may not be well versed, in like trans shit, right? Despite my best friend being trans, I don't really follow that shit. Explain to me how like this. I can see why it can be problematic in some cases, but I don't see why it'd be extremely problematic.
Aha, my Padawan. You shall see.
We'll get there. There are a multitude of things that this ruling will affect.
More so than the Supreme Court actually willing to admit to.
For example, right, because of this ruling now, women-only spaces are more than allowed to turn away transgender women, right? This includes, but is not limited to, the following locations: women's bathrooms, women's changing rooms, women's safe spaces,
Hospitals.
women-only hostels, women's hospitals, rape crisis centers, fucking charities that give out stipends and things so one can get into university, scholarship funds. Need I go on, or did the scream of rape crisis centers kind of clue you into the most
I should
important
know-
one on the list there.
You guys had those over there, do we?
Yes,
I believe America has rape crisis centers. Yes.
yes, you do. And the women's basically your rape crisis also falls under the battered women's shelters.
Yes.
And that's,
Okay.
Because trans women have never been raped or the victims of domestic abuse ever. Apparently, of course, if you ask the Supreme Court.
Now, I say I have the full 87-page document.
87 pay. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
6 of them are actually relevant.
There's 87 pages of what the Supreme Court put out, and I had tried to sit through. And that. It was done by three Lord Justices, and 2 of them agreed to it. So it was a unanimous decision they made.
It was a three judges actually sat down and made the decision, presented it to the other 2, and the other 2 went, "Yeah, we're fine with that."
Yeah. Again, the reason why it's so important is not once in the history of UK has the Supreme Court published anything in the public eye via the news media or via
Correct.
any other media, to be honest.
It's usually after the fact that
Yeah.
the news gets their hands on what happened.
And you don't see them live talking about it, which is even more strange.
Before we even fuck it, fuck the paper for the time being, right? Fuck the 87 pages of wank. Like, obviously, we know what the ruling was, right? We know what the ruling was, right? The Supreme Court said a woman's only a woman if they were born that way, right?
In relating to the Equality Act, yes.
Yes. Well, they say it only relates to the Equality Act, but let's be honest, it's going to be abused way beyond just the Equality Act.
Well, yes,
let's be fucking honest.
Yes, because now it's just precedent for it.
Mm-hmm. Let's tackle the first reason why this decision is fucking wrong, shall we? More like, let's discuss my first reason why this decision was fucking wrong. The discussion of whether or not a woman covers biological women only or biological women and trans women was already answered in the British government a few years ago.
Yeah, 2018.
Back in 2018, where we made the legal distinction between a biological woman referring to a female and the word woman simply referring to anyone who identifies as such.
Yes.
Because we made the legal distinction between your sexual status and your gender identity. So the question had already been answered by the British government. Now, the Supreme Court's job in this case was to read a law written by the British government and figure out what the words in it mean. But the British government already said what the words in it mean, rendering the entire case fucking redundant. But we went ahead with it anyway, and still got the wrong goddamn answer, despite the wrong answer being written on the wall in front of you in big fuck-off permanent marker and on your forehead. And you were also given a mirror. And you still got the wrong goddamn answer. Let's discuss the second reason why this decision was just fucking wrong. The moral reasons for why it was wrong. Trans women, you can say as much as you want. Oh, trans people are protected. They have legal protections, because hate crime laws and shit. Yeah. You fucking point. When has a law ever stopped anyone from committing a crime ever?
Never.
Exactly. Banks are protected by the law. It's illegal to walk into a bank with a gun and demand $10,000 in cash.
Yeah, I still did it last Tuesday, and they gave me some.
Yeah, there are still bank robberies up and down the country. In fact, up and down the world every other fucking week. Banks still get robbed. Jewelry stores still get broken into. People still commit bank fraud. All of those
it's illegal to murder somebody, but I saw somebody get murked at a drive-by yesterday.
Exactly. Murder is illegal. People still do it. Now, you can say, oh, well, trans women have protections under the law, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because people still discriminate against them, taking away rights that they've had for fucking a decade straight now. Yes, I can now. Taking away a right they've had for a decade straight is not justifiable in the stance of, well, they have other rights, so it's fine. You know, if they did this to the black community, if they said, okay, black people are no longer protected under the Equality Act because they're protected under the Race Identity Act, right? The Supreme Court would be strung up by their fucking balls.
No.
Yeah.
You can't justify taking away a group of people's fucking rights because, oh, well, they have other rights, it's fine. Also,
Okay.
yes, we can't hear you now, Fat Man T.
Right. I'm trying to fix
Yeah,
this.
we can.
My mic's gone shit again.
Uh,
1 2
His mic is having a squidgy.
No, it's
1,
fine.
2, 3, 4. How many are in my store?
Thank you.
1 2 1 2. There we go. It's back
There
again.
you go.
There
Right.
you go.
Sorry about that. It's my microphone decided to go fucking haywire again. Fuck.
Let's discuss the third reason why this decision was wrong, shall we? When Fat Man T earlier today, when you were reading through this bill, and the multiple times I came downstairs, remind me again, how many different times did you stop me to update me and say, this makes no goddamn sense because there was already another ruling or decision made by the court or government that renders this entire thing fucking redundant.
Yes.
How many times did that happen again? Remind me.
Well, 6.
A good 6 times.
The biggest
Where
problem.
in the document they admit that as well. Of, well, we use this ruling to make a precedent. It's like it was either a case of that ruling clearly says you're wrong, or that ruling hasn't been relevant to British law for at least a decade.
Well, see, this is the problem we've got with this ruling. It essentially is pitting against a Scottish only case act versus the UK Act itself.
Mm-hmm.
It pits the GRE, which is a gender. Fuck off, what it was now.
Recognition. It's the GRC, I believe.
Yeah, gender recognition certificate of
Yeah.
2004 versus the Code Act of 2010.
Yes.
Right now, what the basically essentially is the this is how that question arise. This is from a 2003 case, I believe, originally. Yes, it was. It's an appeal from the 2003 case that got bounced out of court, and it's here of this turn on the 26th of the. Hang on, easier. Fuck. Nope, not the camera. Not that. Not that.
Well, Fat Man T, it's only been 3 years.
Oh,
Well, I've been doing this for 3 years now.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, going at 4. Right, so this is the document. Question. Right. This was originally heard on the 26th and the 27th of November 2004, and the decision came out yesterday.
That's 2024, but yes.
Okay, 2024. Sorry. The judgment came out yesterday. This lists people involved. That's who brought the case. That's who it's against. Blah blah blah. Right, so let's move on. We'll skip this bit because like there's terminology and some bit of a bit here. Legislation which is appealed periodically concerned is the EA 2010 and the words affected in any case of the GRA 2004 on interpretation of the term sex, man, woman, male and female, used in the EA 2010.
Yes.
Right. That's essentially what we've asked to do. Now this We go section 3, how it arises. For Women Scotland Appellant is a feminist volunteer organisation which campaigns to strengthen women's rights and children's rights in Scotland. This case is
Alright.
Eyes. Sorry, I'm allergic to bullshit.
Wait, why? Oh, I actually don't know like the lore behind that group. If someone could enlighten me real quick.
Okay, they are to Scotland and Scottish feminism what Adolf Hitler was to the right wing.
All right then.
They're in the right place, but they're going way too fucking far and woefully misunderstood the original mission.
basically so far left and now right again.
Yeah. No, they're so far right that, frankly, they've gone off the goddamn compass. They're so far right, we fucking lost track of the fuckers. They're over. They went to the right for a while, and they just can't stop somehow. No, they hit the goddamn right-hand wall, and they've yet to find the bloody door.
Where was that? Google. In this case, the secondary challenge of the judicial review, which the appellant has raised in relation to the statutory guidance in which Scottish ministers propagated under Section 7 of the Gender Representation on Public Boards Scotland. This refers to the basically putting more women on Scottish Parliament, business boards, that type of stuff.
Yes.
Alright.
Act of 2018. The 18 do not refer to as that. In the first petition of the judicial review, the appellant also asserted that the statutory definition of woman in the 2018 Act was outside the legislative competence of the Scottish Parliament under the Scottish Act of 1998, which the amendment of the Scottish Act 4 was turned into the 1998 Act that impugned statutory guidance. It may be helpful to outline the basis for the challenge under the Scottish Act. Section 29 of the Scottish Act provides that the provision of the Act of Scotland Parliament is outside the legislative competence of the South Scottish Parliament if it relates to reserved matters. Schedule 5 of the Scottish Act specifically matters which are reserved to the United Kingdom Parliament. One of the reserved matters, Section L2, is equality opportunity. Since May 2016, there have been exceptions to the reservation of equal opportunity which allows Scotland Parliament to legislate for positive action measures in relation to persons to be appointed to non-executive posts on the board of certain public authorities in Scotland. Section L2 of Schedule 5 so far as a relevant stated to the exception as is. Now, we'll carry on so far. So this is the basis of their claim.
No, because I barely understand a word of what the fuck is being said because it's all in legal jargon bullshit. But that's
Okay, yeah, I'm glad I'm not the only one who doesn't really understand what's going on.
Yeah, I understand that. I've looked a little bit into it, like, you know, in terms of.
I don't at all. Can somebody like Ooga Boogify it down for me?
Right, essentially the feminazis didn't like the fact that under the Equal Opportunity Act for women, they put more women on on Scottish boards for government positions. Right? Only refer to the term women, and they say women should only be a female only thing. And that Scotland had no right to make that decision in the first place. Because reserved matter, not a deserved matter.
Even though it absolutely isn't, because it falls under LGBTQIA plus rights, which is a devolved matter that the Scottish Government has every right to make a decision on.
Yes, hence the GRE was put in place. GRA, was put in place under 2004 under the thing dissolved matters in the first place. So basically, they took this to the Supreme Court to bitch and moan about it.
Yes, and for some reason,
Okay.
the Supreme Court agreed with them.
Yep.
If I say for some reason, I know the reason, and I can show everyone the reason and prove my reason a little later on.
Best way to describe for the
They
American.
use their tits, didn't they?
Best way for America
No,
is
Steven Stilger.
California has a court, Supreme Court, California, made a decision. Governor actually didn't like the decision, so they went to the Supreme Court saying, hey, look, there's bullshit here. Even though it had nothing to do with the Supreme Court in the first place, because it's a state matter.
Let me see if I can find the clip I'm looking for later on.
Right, well, the next section was that. So this basically outlines the rough part of the Scottish Parliament case. And then gives a very brief history of how both legislatures came to being, relative legal bullshit around it, and all that. Right, so we're going to move quickly on to the next part of the document.
Yeah, here the fuck it is. Found its ass. Found the clip I was looking for later on. Yeah. Good.
Because they make reference to the discrimination grounds being transgender of the 1998 regulations, as well as 75, some of the 1975 regulations as well, and blah blah blah.
Both of which are no longer relevant under British law thanks to the 2010 Discrimination Acts. But
yeah,
I guess fuck modern laws. They're not Shakespearean enough.
On page 35, didn't I?
Bigoted bastards.
Page 35, page 35, page 35, page 35.
Well, while you look for that, I'm going to very quickly explain why I am so pissed off about this fucking ruling.
That's what I wanted.
I have a lot of very close friends and family in this country that this directly affects, and I don't like it when the government or anyone fucks with the people I care about.
If you do me a favor, Charles, can you read section 9 and section 10, please?
I would fucking love to. Unfortunately, I can't see the words. So let me go get the link you sent me to it, and I'll fill it up on my big screen so I can actually read it.
Sorry.
No, that's more of a me mistake. Of I didn't think to do that. I've had a long week. I'm a little busy. Tired. Sorry. I have been busy, to be fair. Busy wasn't the word I was looking for. It's been a long week. Leave me the fuck alone. Leave me alone. I'm tired. I'm an EP little fanboy.
Scotty, do you need a hug?
No, I need a nap and a Red Bull. Right, what page?
Page 34, section 9.
34, section 9. Bear with me. 34, section 9. As in 109.
No, as in 9 itself.
Where the fuck is... Oh, right, okay. Right. Section 9, starting at 109.
So start at 12, actually.
No.
Page 34.
Page 30. Oh, right. Nope, sorry. Right. Fucking, I've read the wrong 34. I'm with you.
Scotty's a little retarded. Just hang in there, folks.
Here we go. Yeah. 9 by 112. I'm with you. You. Well, sorry, I did the page count on the sidebar rather than the bottom of the page.
Ah, right.
I was one off. That was my issue. So, Equality Act 2010 overview of the purpose of the legislation.
Right, give this part of the document needed because it gives background on how the EA was structured, pretty much.
Okay. So, the Equality Act 2010 is an important piece of legislation with, I already hate this, but a wide scope. It regulates and conditions the relationships and interaction between private individuals and both private and public entities over a field of activities. That ranges from ensuring fair recruitment, pay, and treatment in the workplace, to the regulation of the professions, the protection of students from unlawful discrimination in schools, colleges, and universities, and the prevention of unfair treatment when accessing healthcare. Well, you fucked that up, lads! Membership clubs, associations, and other goods and services. So you fucked up the entire mission at step 1. Well done, gentlemen. It is both an amending and consolidating statute which was intended, among other things, to reform and harmonise equality law and... Sorry, I was nearly sick in my mouth over the word harmonise being there. And restate the greater part of the enactments relating to it doesn't fit. relating to discrimination and harassment
enough.
related to certain personal characteristics. The reason it doesn't fit there, Echo, is because harmonize is not a word I would fucking use to describe either the Equality Act of 2010 nor the decision that's been made like this week. Frankly,
Okay.
I'm slightly disgusted at their use of the word harmonize given the context. Anywho, long title in brackets for reasons I've yet to fully identify because I'm not brain damaged enough to speak Shakespeare.
Where are you looking at?
After the word characteristics in section 113.
Characteristics. Amendment coordinated statements intended on the other for body activated greater portion of the harassment related to certain personnel.
Personal characteristics, long title. What's that long title for? I don't know. Does anyone know? If you know, answers on a postcard.
It's just another area that's semicolons. The reformed over down to characteristics.
Yeah.
That's the title.
Awesome. So basically that is fucking redundant.
Yeah, as a title actually inside the EA Act 10.
So literally, what is the point of putting long title there? Why is it there? What's the fucking point of it?
I wrote it because, honestly, I've looked at the Equalities Act, and it's a long ass document as well.
Still, there's no need for that. It's pointless. Anyway, it consolidated and reformed the Equal Pay Act of 1970, the SDA in 1975, the Race Relations Act of 1976, the Disability Discrimination Act of 1995, and other, primarily secondary, legislation addressing unlawful discrimination in other specific areas. Now, they fucked up there because there's supposed to be a comma between the words primarily and secondary, because primarily secondary isn't a sentence.
It also ended in the Gay Marriage Act of 1990 and
Yes.
the Marriage Reform Act of 1999.
Yes. Legislation addressing unlawful discrimination in other specific areas, religion or belief, sexual orientation, and age. It hasn't done a great job at one of those. To anyone that can tell me which one it's fucking failed to protect, you win a cookie.
List them off again.
Religion, belief, sexual orientation, and age.
Sexual orientation.
Wrong, it's age. To strengthen the law in order to support greater progress on equality. Seriously, ageism is rampant in this country, and it annoys me to no goddamn end.
It is, yeah.
I actually didn't know about that. Can I give an example?
I'll give you a grand example. If you get a 14-year-old, you give them £10 and you tell them to wait outside of a corner shop for a half hour, they'll be harassed by 15 men. You get a 65-year-old to wait outside the same shop, no one will bother them over it. There's a key example. People in this country assume if you're under the age of about 30 and you're outside of a building, for no discernible obvious reason, you're clearly up to no good.
Also, another example is, once you reach the age of 55, good luck getting a job.
Yeah.
Fair enough, yeah.
The Equalities Act of 2010 is ranged over 16 parts and 28 schedules. It closely defines the various forms of prohibited conduct regulated by its provisions. It does that first by establishing key concepts in Part 2, and then in subsequent parts by creating a series of statutory torts, that is acts that are unlawful conduct in context of certain activities. These broadly relate to services and public functions, premises, work, education, and associations. The unlawful acts have a wide coverage, but are also numerous exemptions to the unlawful acts created by the Equalities Act of 2010. Some of the general application and others specific to certain unlawful acts or characteristics. Individuals can enforce rights under the Equalities Act 2010 in tribunals and courts. The EHRC has a role in taking strategic and certain enforcement action under the Equalities Act of 2010. So far as key concepts are concerned, Part 2 explains and defines the forms of discrimination and other conduct that is prohibited by subsequent parts of the Act discrimination comprises. End of page. A. Direct discrimination defined in Section 13. B. Combined discrimination because of combination of two relevant protected characteristics, defined in Section 14. Discrimination arising from disability, defined in Section 15. Gender reassignment discrimination, case of absence from work, defined in Section 16. Pregnancy and maternity discrimination, non-work cases, defined in Section 17. Pregnancy and maternity work cases, defined in Section 18. And indirect discrimination, defined in Sections 19 and 19A. Other prohibited conduct comprises harassment under Section 26 and victimization, Section 27. Though these are not forms of discrimination for the purposes of the Equalities Act of 2010. Section 25 is headed References to particular strands of discrimination and sets out what is meant by references to characteristic-specific discrimination. It covers the 9 protected characteristics under the Equalities Act of 2010, namely age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion or belief, sex, and sexual orientation. Relevantly for the purposes it provides that free gender reassignment discrimination is a discrimination within Section 13 because of gender reassignment, discrimination within Section 16, discrimination within Section 19 or 19A where the relevant protected characteristic is gender reassignment. Now, I'm going to just stop there.
Yeah.
Can anyone please mayhaps tell me, just from like the 3 I read there that define what gender reassignment discrimination equates to?
Mm-hmm.
Why the Supreme Court was very clearly fucking wrong and is comprised of a bunch of bellends with an IQ of 2. Can anyone tell me? Would anyone like to share with the class where the Supreme Court did the wrong math?
Go on then.
So the case was brought forward by the group of feminists.
Yes.
To prevent transgender women from having access to certain services intended for women because they're transgender.
Yes.
Now, I'm no expert on the English language, but pretty sure discrimination within Section 13 because of gender reassignment, as well as discrimination within Section 19 or 19A, where the relevant protected characteristic is gender assignment, both of which counting as ways gender discrimination counts. Both cover denying someone access to a service because they've been reassigned their gender.
Yes, this is the argument that the feminazis are making, is that under the EA, right, they make distinct characteristics of what gender reassignment is for protection of those under the EA.
Sorry about
So
that.
then
I got a call from my job code.
With
You're fine.
respect to woman, they meant a separate class, different from gender reassignment. Since provisions already made for that in the EA 10.
Correct, but the EA 10 also says you cannot discriminate against someone because they've had their gender reassigned, which they are very clearly doing.
Yes, but also be in the same context that women with bitches couldn't exist anyway. That's from against men in general terms, but it's allowed.
Correct. Correct, but men are not protected under the Equality Act.
Men are actually, yes.
Not outright.
No, there's actually very specifically Equality Act in the relevant sections for the EA.
Correct, but there are other acts within the Equality Act that kind of overrule them that allow the certain gender exclusive regions to exist.
Yes, and again, those gender regions also overact the Gender Reassignment Act. I read through the EA, and the EA is a hot mess, to be honest, with legislation.
It is an absolute hot mess of legislation that needs reworked. However, the correct move would have been to rework the Gender Legislation Act so that everyone would shut the fuck up, not bow down to a bunch of bigoted fucks.
Yeah.
Under that, under the EA Act, to be honest, it's basically a document full of loopholes on how to get around being discriminated a little bigot.
Yes.
to be honest.
Which again should be even more evidence, the statement that I've been saying for years now, that, you know, the British government is full of fucking discriminating bigots. But, you know, I can't really say that too loudly, because if I do, oh, that's a hate crime. You can't say that. You can't say the government is bigoted and biased. That's a hate crime.
Hold on, that's
that
actually a
hurt
hate crime?
That hurt the feelings of your local MSP. That's a hate crime.
Wait, hold on. Are you serious?
If I say the government is full of bigots and fucking pedanderers, and I say it aggressively enough, yes, it can be counted.
That is some bullshit.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, but like a lot of people think England itself, the UK itself, does not have any free speech laws. We have
Yes,
what's called presumed speech,
Yes, presumed speech.
which basically only allows us to criticize the government when the government is doing a critical act.
Yes.
Who decides what's a critical act though? The
The
government?
government.
Yeah, currently what critical act
Yeah,
generally
sounds
refers to is what's currently going on inside the House of Commons at that point in time. So if they talk about a topic you're passionate about, you can then go protest. But when they finish talking about that, you technically can't protest anymore. Until they bring it
Welcome
back up again.
Hold on, Scotty, can you translate that? I didn't quite get all of what Fat Man T said.
Basically, right? Let's say, right? Let's say you're really passionate about gay rights, yeah? So
Yeah.
let's say you support gay rights, right? So the government's going to talk about gay rights, right? They're going to talk about it in the government building, right? They're going to have a little discussion about it, right?
Yeah.
You're going to go along, you're going to show your support for the gay people, right? You're going to turn up with a little banner, bunch of other cunts are going to come with you, right? You get there, right? So let's say the discussion about gay rights, that starts at 9 o'clock in the morning, right? So you get there, bang on 9 o'clock, right? You stand there with your banners, right? They finish talking about it at 10 o'clock in the morning, right? Once it hits 10 o'clock in the morning and the British government has stopped talking about the issue, you must now disperse your protest and or rally about the issue.
Okay.
If you stay past 10 o'clock and you continue to stand there holding technically a protest, you can be arrested.
Unless you first, unless it came to permit, which allows you to protest beyond a lot of time.
I'll be honest, good fucking luck getting that permit. Like, especially in England, good luck. Like in Scotland, easy peasy to get that permit. Scotland loves a good old fashioned protest. In England,
Yeah.
good fucking luck getting your hands on that shit. I hope you're willing to give your local member of parliament a right sloppy blowjob, because if you ain't getting that goddamn permit, my gamer. That's why so many farmers got arrested a couple of months ago, because they basically had a protest with tractors and no permits. Let me tell you, the officers that arrested the men in battle tractors were braver officers than I would have been. Because I wasn't going to fuck with Jeremy Clarkson and his army of battle tractors.
I'm Jeremy Clarkson. Welcome to Top Gear. Today, we're running over the British Parliament.
Oh, it was pretty much that close to that. I mean, the news
was pretty close to it.
The news came out trying to interview Clarkson, and they try to trap him so much shit by like really trying to twist his words. And all praise to him, right? It was not flowering any of his speech. He just came straight to the point, like, nope, they're being cunts about this. They need to fuck off about it.
Which, to be fair, the British government absolutely were being cunts about it with the farmers. So
Yeah.
Oh, look at that! I've committed a hate crime. Uh-oh.
Right.
Woo, woo, woo.
Okay. Wait, we section 10, weren't we?
Let me double check.
Hold on, what were they protesting again? I remember seeing it. I remember seeing an article about it, but I can't remember what they were protesting.
It was
Basically, inheritance tax.
Yeah.
What? You both spoke at the same time. What?
Basically, inheritance tax.
I think I know what that is.
Oh, for God's sake! Right.
Right,
So
hang on.
basically, Echo.
Hang on, I'll break down easier.
No, I got it. I can get it in 4 words. I'm used to speaking fluent retard. So, Echo, let's say you're a farmer, right?
Yeah.
Let's say your dad is
Yeah.
also a farmer. Your dad owns the farm, he owns all the tractors, he owns all the cows, he owns all the fields and shit, right?
Yeah.
When your dad dies, he'll write down on a piece of paper before he dies, I will all the shit I own to my son, the farmer, right? Now, when he does that and he dies, right, the lawyer comes along, he looks at the paper, says, yep, that checks out. You get all that shit. Only you don't get all of that shit. The government gets a certain percentage of that shit. And or
Why?
a monetary value equivocal to that shit.
Why?
Taxes.
I'll be honest. I've been asking that a question since I was about 12. I've yet to get a straight answer. Fireman, your microphone's unplugged again, by the way, because I just heard you talking from downstairs, but not through my headset.
I heard that near Mike, Scotty.
Yeah,
Scotty, I heard that near Mike.
just Alfie, will you fuck off? I wonder if that picked up on the screen. I'm gonna go back after the fact. I'm gonna see if the stream version picked that up through my microphone, because if that only picked up through my mic, that's gonna be fucking beautiful.
Right, can you hear us? Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Oh. You there, Fireman? You alive? You got it? No, you're not alive yet. Okay. I can hear him going mad from downstairs. Oh, as per always, it's a scuffed as fuck episode. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go downstairs and help him plug it back in. I don't think it's
Oh,
going
God.
now. Yeah, fuck it. Let me go give the gamer a hand. Hang on, that'll be 2 seconds. Hang on, where's the
So
server?
I've got to entertain the crowd until you guys get back.
Pretty much, yeah. Hold down the fort. I'll be 2 minutes.
Alright, so okay, guys, we're gonna be talking about black people.
You're getting audio still,
Yeah, I'm going to audio show. Right. Testing 1, 2.
So
Hello.
if you go into settings, on
You can hear
Discord,
us, I think.
just make sure you come through the right microphone.
1, 2, 1, 2. Right.
Yeah,
Red
it's going
screen.
through the right one. Yeah. OBS still picking you up?
Yeah. I don't know what's causing it.
Oh, Scotty told you, Fat Man T. But we can hear you yelling at Alfie from like through Scotty's mic.
It's like,
Hmm?
why does the cables getting over something?
Probably the ones at least the one who make got is that fucking soundboard one. No, sort out.
I'm trying to find one off Amazon. What do you mean?
Right, we're back. Kind of. For now. Fuck's sake. Structure.
There we go. Right,
So
Fatman
what
T,
we're talking about again?
Say something quickly, Fatman T, before I get comfy.
1, 2, 1, 2.
Perfect, right, you're coming through. Good. Oh. Oh, my bones. Oh. Dude, I don't know about you, cunts. I'm starting to feel my age. I don't know about you lot. Let me tell you.
Right,
Like, I stood up earlier on off of my couch. I thought I dislocated my fucking knee. My body's not happy this week.
I'm not happy with it. My body's not really happy with it either. Right, Charles, biggest next page is page 45, section 12.
Okay, page 45, section 12. 45, section 12. 45, section 12. 45. Section 12. Ugh. The importance of clarity and consistency, both of those with legal rights and protections and those who have duties imposed on them by the Equalities Act 2010. That's section 12, I believe.
Yep, that basically now we're from section 12 to section 18, but I'll leave it with you if you want to skim some of that out, because that's quite a long section.
I probably will. Alright, let's have a look. Accordingly, it is clear from the above that the Equalities Act 2010 gives important legal rights to individuals and groups who are vulnerable to unlawful discrimination because of a particular or shared protected characteristic, and both protects against unlawful discrimination and seeks to advance equal treatment. In doing so, it seeks to strike a balance between the rights of one group and another, rights that can conflict with or contradict one another in some circumstances. An obvious example of such conflict emerges in employment cases concerning the protected characteristics of religion or belief, on the one hand, and sexual orientation on the other. See, for example, Islington, London, Borough Council versus Ladele, 2009, EWCA Civic 1357, 2010. WLR 955, which concerned disciplinary proceedings taken against a designated civil partnership registrar who refused to conduct same-sex civil partnership ceremonies in accordance with the Civil Partnership Act 2004, on the ground that such unions were contrary to her Orthodox Christian belief that marriage is the union of one man and one woman for life. Paragraph 7. The Equalities Act 2010 also imposes duties on individuals and organizations not to discriminate unlawfully. It does so by regulating the practical day-to-day conduct of public and private sector employees, small, medium, and large.
Peter, I've got a question.
Okay, what is it?
So it says discriminate unlawfully. Is there a way to discriminate lawfully?
Yes, there is.
Several.
Elaborate.
Well, one key, very obvious example is would be a key example of a Christian church would be allowed to refuse to hire a Muslim person to be a priest.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean it's a fucking stupid and crude analogy for it, but yes, like it is technically, I am technically correct, but yes.
Or essentially, the other one is like in sports, we have the male and female separate sporting events.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like technically, there are legal ways to discriminate.
Or another one was recent actually was we call male heavy rules such as armed services and police.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another fantastic one, like because this ties into the military, would be taking like every soldier in the British Army, who asks a girl for nude images on the first date and putting them on the front line. That would be both perfectly legal and also morally very justified.
Yes.
For anyone who doesn't get that reference, incidentally, you've lost 3 cool points with me.
Yes, there are legal ways of discrimination, but people don't understand that. It's
In fairness, it's because there's a lot more
But
illegal
so
ones
what
than
you're
there are
telling
legal
me-
ones.
Gentlemen,
Echo,
I may not have a brain, but I have an idea.
Echo, whatever it is you're about to ask, if we're telling you, we're probably not telling you. Right, so service providers and others in relation to employees, workers, service users, and members of the public who have one or more protected characteristic. Since sex as a protected characteristic is a ground for these legal rights, it must be possible for sex to be interpreted in a way that is, end of page, predictable, workable, and capable of being consistently understood and applied in the practice by this wide range of duty bearers. Which, again, going back to my previous point, it already been defined in such a way because female and woman. But, you know, apparently somehow I'm the bad guy when I point that fucking well out. The group-based rights or protections in the Equality Act 2010 recognize that people who share a particular protected characteristic, known or perceived, often have common experiences or needs, whether arising from differences of biology or physiology or societal expectations or structures affecting their group. These shared experiences or needs can and do give rise to particular disadvantage if they are not met. And they differentiate that group from other groups without the protected characteristic. As we have said, the duties imposed by the Equalities Act 2010 require an ability to anticipate that particular rules, policies, or practices might affect those who share a protected characteristic and have distinct need or interest in consequence. Those upon whom the Equalities Act 2010 imposes duties, the duty bearers, must regulate their conduct and practices to avoid unlawful, indirect discrimination. Organizations considering taking appropriate positive action measures must be able to identify membership of a disadvantaged group sharing a particular characteristic. Public authorities subject to the duty in Section 149, the PSED, must be able to identify differently affected groups if they are to be able to analyze the features which may disadvantage some groups over others or affect relations between them in order to analyze the impact of their policies. In short, clarity and consistency about how to identify the relevant groups that share protected characteristics are essential to the practical operation of the Equalities Act of 2010.
Now, essentially, what that section's basically telling you is down to the person who's organising or the employer. It's a case of you have to identify who's the protected class. So you have tits, you're a woman, you're in a wheelchair, you're a cripple, yada yada yada, so type thing.
Yes.
And then make provisions based on those protected classes.
Which, to be fair, even with like a transgender woman, it's easy to know because you just fucking ask.
But under the Gender Information Act of 2018, you can't ask.
Yeah, I'm not being funny, gamer. There's ways to ask without asking. Like all I'm saying, you have free conversations with a trans person, you're probably gonna figure it the fuck out.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to sound like an asshole or nothing, but it's usually fairly free conversations worth of effort to figure it the fuck out. Let's be fair.
Like I say, I'm not denying that fact. I'm just saying that's essentially what's in the current provisions.
Yeah, all I'm saying is even if it is under current provisions, still not really a justification for the decision the Supreme Court made. So I don't understand why it's in this paper. The central question: does the Equalities Act 2010 make provision with the meaning of Section 9(3) of the Gender Recognition Act 2004 to displace the application of Section 9(1)?
Now, this section...
What the fuck did any of that mean?
Right, Section 9(3) and Section 9(1).
I don't know. I don't understand. I didn't understand it either.
Refers to the ability of getting hands on the gender recognition certificate. And that basically it falls into Section 9(1), I think, is the medical definition you need for be on HRT, been living as a woman for 2 years, gone through certain levels of therapy, and all you get your hands on the certificate, where Section 3 represents what that certificate can allow you to do.
Right, I see. So, I'm with you. So this is the main question of the entire case.
Yeah, does this line up with the EA10, basically?
Right. Yes, but hey ho. Against the background, we turn to address the central question in this appeal. Why is that there?
I have no idea.
What the fucking... I'm sorry, did the typographer for a brief minute think they were writing a fucking stage play? Excuse the shit. Why are you describing the scene? What is this? I've read more convincing fucking legal papers coming out of fucking third-rate law schools, for Christ's sake.
And it's the
Jesus God.
And it's the highest representation of law in our country.
I'm fucking mad about it. To recap, don't recap. Section 9.1 of the GRA. Read with Section 9.2 and 3. I'd love to, but I don't hate myself enough.
Don't
Has
do
the
it.
effect that the gender of a person with a GRC becomes the acquired gender for all purposes. So that if the... I just had to pause there to let that fucking statement sink in for everyone.
Yeah.
So if the acquired gender is the male gender, the person's sex becomes that of a man. No, it doesn't. And if it's the female gender, the person's sex becomes that of a woman. Okay, I understand how they came to the wrong fucking decision. They woefully misinterpreted the fucking question. That's what happened. They misread the entire formula. Ha 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 ha. I'm so happy. Can't you tell how happy I am?
You need your pills again.
The government is run by a group of gibbons. I'm so happy about it.
I thought you said. I thought you said the government. I thought you said the government. I thought you said the government was bees.
Oh, the government is bees, but it's bees being controlled by a group of gibbons. It's a fucking disaster. Why do I even bother voting anymore? I swear to God.
Did you vote last time?
Yes, I did.
Hmm.
I did vote in the last election. I heavily regret my choices now.
Who did you vote for?
You were the chosen one, Keir Starmer. You were supposed to destroy the Nazis, not fucking join them. Where's my mouse cursor?
I have
I've
no
lost
idea.
my mouse. There it is. There it is. Right. Unless there's a specific exception in the GRA 2004 itself, or unless the terms and context of an enactment, including a subsequent enactment, demonstrate that there is provision made by that enactment pursuant of Section 9.3 that negates the effects of Section 9.1. In other words, Section 9.1 applies unless Section 9.3 applies. Section 9.3 will obviously apply. Yeah, it's super fucking obvious. Of course, obviously it applies. It would be obvious if we knew what the fuck you're talking about, lads. Where the GRA 2004 or subsequent enactment says so expressly, but expressed disapplication of Section 9. I'm flashbanging myself with every word. It's not necessary.
I
As
don't even understand.
huh?
I don't even understand what you're saying.
This is like I'm saying it, and I don't fucking understand what I'm saying because this honestly, it reads like a 12-year-old trying to smush words into a sentence that they grabbed out of the thesaurus without knowing what the words actually mean.
Basically, what they're trying to do
Yeah,
is describe the visions without actually describing the visions. They're saying, oh, if you want to know what we want about, go and read this another 75-page document.
Like I tell you exactly how this reads, right? This reads like what most peasants probably like. I feel right now how I reckon most peasants felt listening to William Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm hearing made up fucking words. Made up words with made up syntax. Like the way I feel right now, I wager, is probably how a peasant felt the very first time they heard a man live on stage use the term gobbledygook.
No, that's right, my joke. It's like watching someone try and understand Latin for the first time.
No. Latin's genuinely easier to... I'll be honest, if this was in Latin, I'd have an easier time understanding it.
Probably, I did go to the section where they did refer to what the GR Section 9 and Section 9, 1 and 3 were. But to me, it wasn't relevant to the case itself, the point.
Yeah.
Because basically just saying that the whole point of that act was, like, say, if you got caught saying you're a woman, you're a woman.
Yeah.
This is purely based on the wording of the EA Act, not the GRE Act.
But express disapplication of Section 9.1 is not necessary, as we've explained. Section 9.3 will also apply where the terms, context, and purpose of the relevant enactment show that it does, because of a clear incompatibility or because its provisions are rendered incoherent or unworkable by the... No, that's fucking ironic! It will not apply because its provisions are rendered incoherent. Motherfucker, the last 4 paragraphs have been incoherent gibber.
It gets
What
worse.
the fuck are you? How dare you throw the word incoherent into this incoherent mess?
It gets worse, my gamer.
End of page. There is no doubt that the Equalities Act 2010 was enacted in knowledge of the existence of the Gender Recognition Act 2004. Its known consequences in the case law which both prompted it, Goodwin, and confirmed the Gender Reforming Act 2004 as having remedied Gender Recognition Act, as having remedied the convention breach. Indeed, the Equality Act 2010 contains an exemption for gender reassignment discrimination in the context of solemnization of marriage, which refers expressly to the effects of Section 9 as the person's gender has become the acquired gender under the Gender Recognition Act of 2004. See paragraph 24, part 6. So strongly worded rule in Section 9 of the GRA must be taken to apply to the Equalities Act 2010 by virtue of Section 9.2, unless there is provision made in the Equalities Act 2010 that disapplies or negates the effect of Section 9.1 on the meaning of sex in the Equalities Act 2010. If Section 9.3 does not apply, then the Section 9.1 rule does apply, and sex in the Equality Act 2010 must have an extended meaning that includes certified sex. If that is the position, then the Scottish Minister's guidance about the application of the 2018 Act is correct and lawful in making clear that trans women with a GRC can count towards the attainment of the goal of achieving 50% representation of women on the public boards covered by the 2018 Act.
Right, pause it.
I didn't understand any of that.
Right, essentially what they're trying to say here is, although the Gender Recognition Act, therefore, came in effect saying that if you said you were now a woman, you were now a woman, by obtaining the certificate, the Equalities Act separates the two distinct out between gender recognition and biological sex.
All right.
It's essentially what they're stating. Now, probably though in the Equalities Act, for the part of biological sex, they put the word woman in there instead of female.
Yes.
And this is the crux of the argument is, did they mean by when they put woman there, female, biological female, or all women, including the gender recognition, which has its own separate provision within the Equality Act?
Because in the GRC and other subsequent acts and rulings and laws, the term woman is used to refer to all, whereas female is used to refer to only biological women. One must take the assumption, because many of those rulings came in before, before the question at hand. One must therefore assume that they knew what they were doing with the use of the word woman, and therefore take it at its normal value, as it would be applied under any other law.
Yes, but then, the argument goes, therefore women have no protections under the EE Act by themselves.
Yes, they do, because woman covers all women, be they female biological or woman identifying. So yes, they do have protections. They're just the same protections as a trans woman would have.
This is the central crux of the argument. The feminazis say they do not have any protections under the Equalities Act, therefore the woman had to refer to biological sex.
Again, they do have protections. Because the thing is, right? The thing is the way the law was previously being interpreted, everyone had protection.
Yes.
The way the Supreme Court has just ruled that the law should be applied has basically just put the entire trans community, specifically trans females, in the very position biological women were just complaining about.
Yes, essentially.
Does anyone see the double standard there?
Now, in
Or is it just me?
paragraph 159, Lady Helding concluded that point herself.
Yes.
Hence, that's why she denounced the appeal. in their report.
Yes.
Are we still in section 12, are we?
I believe so.
section
No, we're in
13.
14.
They skipped 14, so it basically outlines from Tel the basically outhouse conscript of what they believe they're putting in terminology.
Awesome. So section 14, the meaning of sex in the SDA before and after the enactment of the GRA 2004.
Yeah. Now again, they've gone back to 1975.
Yeah. Before the enactment of the GRA 2004, there is no doubt that references to sex, man and woman in the SDA 1975 were references to biological sex. On the enactment of the GRA 2004, as we have explained above, limited changes were made to the SDA 1975, but this was not done by amending the definition of sex and introducing a differently constructed concept of sex. Rather, sex remained biological sex, as we've explained in paragraphs 80 to 82 above. Correct, because again, sex and gender are different concepts, you fucking idiots.
Yes.
There is no reason to suppose that Parliament intended by the yes, there is a change of substance from the SDA. Yes, there is, by introducing a modification to the meaning of sex in accordance with section yes, there is of the GRA 2004. The parties did not draw attention to anything in the documents which led up to the enactment of the Equalities Act 2010, which identified a perceived mischief that needed a change of substance in the... I'm fucking sorry.
What?
Mayhaps I had a stroke there. I'm finna need my fucking triple seeing glasses so as to begin to truly perceive and comprehend the bullshit on display upon my fucking screen. Let's try that one more time. The parties did not draw our attention to anything in the documents which led up to the enactment of the Equalities Act 2010, which identified a perceived mischief that needed a change of substance in the law in this regard. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to translate that sentence for everyone. Motherfucker really just said that there is no evidence to support the statement that before the Equalities Act of 2010 was established, there's no evidence to support that before that there were any hate crimes ever in history, is ostensibly what this motherfucker just said.
No,
And I do not think that he's smart enough to realize that that's what he just fucking wrote down. I heard you say no.
Yeah.
Don't you dare try and know me, Fat Man T. That is what he's just said when boiled down.
No, what he's actually saying, the mystery point is there's no difference between the 1974 case and the 2004 provisions.
The problem is that's not what the word mischief means. So no, he doesn't mean that. He may think he means that, but that isn't what he means.
Yeah, if you change the
'Cause
word
that's not what the word mischief means when put into that particular legal context.
he's using a very old definition of mischief for some reason, I don't know why. But the co-equal murder of mischief, or the kind of use of mischief, doesn't apply here. Yes, you're right.
Even under old uses of the term mischief, still doesn't apply. Even under the oldest of definitions of the word mischief, motherfucker legit just said no crimes occurred before the 2010 Act that would give a reason for the 2010 Act to have been put into place in the way it's being interpreted. Because mischief, no matter what point in time you look at least in passing, refers to criminal behavior or activity. Which is why I disagree with all of our criminal mischief laws, because when you really boil down the word mischief, it translates to criminal act anyway. So criminal mischief means criminal act. Which is a double negative. Therefore, bollocks. But once again, our entire government is too stupid to understand its own language, yet keeps insisting on using the most complicated forms of it. Which is probably why our country has so many fucking problems.
Of course, our courts still like the idea of dress up.
Yeah. In fairness, I think all courts like the idea of dress up, let's be honest here. I don't think there's a single court in the land you could rock into wearing t-shirts and like a t-shirt and shorts and not go to jail by default.
I don't even go. But even if we are wrong about that, we acknowledge that it is difficult to understand the purpose of some of the amendments to the GOQ provision of the SED 1975 made by the GRA 2004. The EA 2010 both consolidate and reform anti-discrimination law and a self-centered reforming statute.
Self-contained reforming statute.
Self-contained reforming statute. It should be interpreted, if reasonably possible, without recourse to the present position of the GOQ provisions in the SAD in 1975, which replaced many of the exceptions were fundamentals.
Were repealed and many of the exemptions were fundamentally end of page.
Reform
Reframed, thus, whatever the position in the relation to the SDA 1975, the focus of our analysis is necessary on the Equalities Act 2010.
So they're referring to the SED for the definition of what woman was, but still...
Yeah, they're fucking idiots. Have I proven my point yet? Is my point proven? Of just like, can we just stop? Like, surely we don't need to say any more beyond this for people to understand how fucking brain dead this is.
With one, we skipped to section 19.
Section 19. Let me find section 19.
Page 76.
Page 76. Hang on then.
Well, no, sorry. Can't take that one down. First off, no, we need section 15 first.
Where's section 15?
Section 16, page 56.
56. 56.
Bottom page.
What section, sorry?
16.
Section 16. 56. Here we go. No. Oh, goody. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to quickly reiterate, because I suspect it might be important for me to do so. The words I'm about to read are not my words. I did not write these down. This is an official government document put out by the British government.
Yeah, fresh off the press today.
We do not condone the British government here.
Yes, these are not my words. These are the words of the British government. While I am saying them, they probably do not and will not reflect my own personal thoughts and feelings, nor would they reflect the views and or the standards of the channel. We're merely reporting upon fuckery.
Yeah, we're just breaking down what was put out to us.
Yes.
Bear in mind, people, this is put out to civilians to read and try and understand.
Yes. So remember, Great British Government, if anything I say that's written down on this paper, if me saying it counts as a hate crime, you have to arrest yourselves as well, because you fuckers wrote it down. Yeah. Just keep that in mind before you dare chap on my door about this episode.
Bear we are reading as is. This is like, again, there's no interpretation of it. This is the raw document released by the Supreme Court.
So, no variable definition of a woman. The second division of the Inner House recognized the force of this manifestly obvious conclusion in relation to provisions related to pregnancy and maternity. The Inner House concluded that since pregnancy is a matter of fact, which hinges entirely on biology, these provisions to mandate a biological meaning of sex, paragraph 61-62 of the judgment, in reaching that conclusion, the Inner House also recognized that there might be other provisions in the Equality Act of 2010 where it might equally be necessary to adopt what they described as contextual interpretation of sex as based on biology. However, the Inner House regarded it as impractical to examine every section, every schedule of the Equalities Act 2010 to address this possibility. Now let's just stop right there for a brief second and double back for a mere second, shall we? The Inner House concluded that since pregnancy is a matter of fact, which hinges entirely on biology, these provisions to mandate a biological meaning of sex in reaching that conclusion. Basically, if I'm reading that correctly, one requires pregnancy and maternity to count as a woman.
No.
So that's how I'm reading that. So ladies out there, if you got kicked in the stomach a little bit too hard and your ovarian cavity has been ruptured and you now are physically, medically incapable of having children, you don't count as a woman.
Wait,
That's what
Huh?
that reads. That's how that reads to me, motherfuckers.
From the
Huh.
inner house, the inner house, denied the appeal of the feminist group.
So wait,
Yep.
what do they count as then? What do they count as then?
Ask the Great British Government because they didn't say.
Because the inner house agreed with the Scottish government on the fact of like trans women can be classified as women under the generation of the E Act separately.
Yes, they did. We have for some ungodly reason we have a quote here instead of an addendum, because again this was clearly written by a 12-year-old, and for some reason the word tobacco is appearing in the fucking paragraph, and I'm curious as to what the context to that being there is going to be. So I'm going to quickly read it.
Oh, yeah.
To interpret these provisions as including only those who are pregnant, both as a matter of fact and biologically, regardless of the terms of any GRC, does not detract from the proposition that the default interpretation of woman or female, different concepts, would elsewhere in the Act include such a person. We do not consider that such an approach leads to an interpretation which is other than constant and predictable. Imperial Tobacco, Lord Hope, paragraph 14. We do not understand the observations in Imperial Tobacco as excluding an interpretation under which a word or phrase has a default meaning within a statute other than where the context clearly mandates otherwise. What is required is that whenever the phrase or word occurs, its meaning within the particular context where it appears is clear and predictable. The approach which we have identified achieves that.
Right, I understand the quote.
That's because the fucking approach you have identified and gone with is the approach of we're going to ignore literally all evidence all around us and focus on a single point, and that point being the question, and look at no possible fucking locations of evidence so as to reach the answer.
Yeah, we didn't do pure tobacco before. The idea with pure tobacco meant that the Crown owned the tobacco company, which theoretically they didn't at the time. It was just used as a marketing term.
Yes.
And that's so no way pure said out to be back in the world by saying, oh, the Crown's involved in the tobacco business.
No, because said company was called Imperial Tobacco because it harvested its tobacco from tobacco farms that were located within countries that previously were parts of the British Empire.
Yes.
Hence the name of the company. Fucking idiots. Oh my god. I'm besieged by fucking morons. I respectfully disagree with your right to breathe. We respectfully disagree with this conclusion by its nature. A variable definition is neither clear, constant, nor predictable. It is the opposite, in fact. It is also contradicted by the single definition of sex that fixes its meaning in the Equalities Act 2010. You're idiots.
Right. Well, basically, now, I understand this point now with second division. Basically,
I don't.
Basically, what second division is trying to say is the term woman and in the acts is a variable concept where say, if referring to pregnancy, woman refers to female. If you're referring to someone who wears a dress, that could be anything.
But no, that's a Scotty.
Right? That's what the
Shut the fuck up.
that's what in-house was trying to say. But when referred to like the Imperial Tobacco thing in the quote. It is the Supreme Court that's disagreeing with that. Saying no woman means female.
The fact they're even comparing women, trans or otherwise, to a tobacco company on its own is reason enough for me to just close Google right now. Like how fucking dare anyone How dare fucking anyone compare a human being to a fucking tobacco company? Like,
Lashes.
what you heard was me punching my couch.
Ah,
Like, I've never been so disgusted by humanity in my fucking life. And I've seen some shit go down. This is the peak of failure for this species. Like, misinterpretation of law, complete fucking ignorance, willful that ignorance of previous law cases that, if memory serves, the Supreme Court were involved in, I might add. Fucking comparison between human fucking beings and their rights, and the existence of and the rights of a tobacco company, which, if I even have to explain to anyone why that is a woefully inappropriate and fucking disgusting comparison for anyone to make on this planet, frankly, I'll give up on life.
you
Also,
already have it?
also a bunch of bigoted, homophobic fucking cunts can sit on their arse, twiddle themselves gently as they fall the fuck asleep, and feel good about themselves because they think they've helped out, when all they've actually done is just handed extra rights and the fucking ability to be who they want to be to a bunch of fucking Nazis. What was the point of World War II? Why did we even bother sending the fucking troops if we were just going to hand the keys back at the end anyway?
Right, this next few paragraphs of this argument against the in-house court's decision. Section 17, court provision of the gender assignment sexual orientation. On page 59. This goes over the enforcement of the GRA Act, products of it. To the conference support the conclusion thus far of the first and protected characteristics of gender assignment is defined strictly from sex in section 7 of the A10, and then no conflation of the characteristics of section 9 problem. Section 7 gender assignment, the person who has protected characteristics of gender assignment is permanent person is proposed to undergo, is undergoing, or has undergone process or part of the process for the purpose of reassigning a person's sex by changing physiological or other attributes of sex. 2 refers to a transsexual person, refers to a person who has protected characteristics of gender reassignment. 3 relaxation of protected characteristics of gender reassignment. A refers to a person particularly protected characteristic of. What the fuck? This is the exact same thing.
Right, what? Right, where? What page? Give me a page number.
Page 59, section 17.
Page 59, section 17. Alright, which subpar?
198.
198, right. 2 of our core provisions support our conclusion thus far. First, the protected characteristics of gender reassignment is defined distinctly from sex in section 7 of the Equalities Act 2010, and there's no conflation of these separate characteristics. Excuse me a second. Thank you. Right.
What was that?
I was phlegmic. A person
Oh.
has a protected characteristic of gender reassignment if the person is proposing to undergo, is undergoing, or has undergone a process or part of a process for the purpose of reassigning the person's sex by changing physiological or other attributes of sex. That, once again, we are misinterpreting what the word sex means, you fucking hillbilly hicks. A reference of transsexual, fuck you, person is a reference to a person who has the protected characteristic of gender reassignment. The fact that the British government is still using the term transsexual in the year of our Lord 2025 is on its own a problem. In relation
Wait,
to the
remember
protected
the problem
characteristic,
again?
we don't have time to get into that, Echo. In
Yeah.
relation to the protected characteristic of gender reassignment, a
Well,
reference
because
to
I
a word,
genuinely don't know what the problem with that is.
it's just a no-no word, accept it. If I have to explain it, I'm gonna shout because I'm already angry and I don't have the energy to do two angries today. I will tell you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll explain it later on because it's the whole thing on its own.
A reference to a person who has a particular protected characteristic is a reference to a trans. I'm not gonna finish reading that. I'm not going to finish that particular paragraph. Otherwise, my hand will go through the nearby window. There's a word and a half left in that sentence, and I'm not gonna say them. I'm gonna move on and pretend that isn't there.
Okay.
Otherwise, I might just have to go have a quick word with the British government. A reference to persons who share protected character. Right, no, I'm done now. No, that's it. The British government is. No. Talk amongst yourselves. No. No. 3 strikes and you're out. No, I'm done. No. Free back to back. You can fuck off. No, I don't care if it's in my contract. No. Phone your fucking lawyer. I don't care. I'm not doing it. I'm not reading it.
Past it.
Like I don't care if it's in my contract that I'm supposed to read. I'm not reading that. I refuse to say those words out loud.
We don't have to.
Oh,
Moved on.
wait, what were the words?
It was the same word I already had a problem with, and it's been
Ah.
used. It's been used 3 times back to back now by the British government, who should know better. Because I'll be honest, if a straight person on the street used that word, that would be a fucking hate crime. But if the Supreme Court uses it in official paperwork, under incorrect context, they don't go
Oh,
to
it's
jail.
5 10.
Because this
Yeah,
country is full of nothing but double standards. Like, no, that's not. No.
EHRC recognises the problem in the interpretation of sex as certified sex.
The main reason I'm not reading any further as well is because if they're willing to use that word, I'm willing to wager that at some point in that fucking piece of paperwork, the trans V word will turn up, and then I'll actually have to fucking do something.
Oh, wait.
Yeah. If trans S is willing to turn up, I'm not going to put it past the British government not to throw trans V in there too.
I'll keep reading then.
Like,
page 76, section 19. The EHRC is expert agency in tasking the Parliament with considering the orientation and operation of the EEA 2010. In the letter of 3rd of April 2023, the issue advised UK government about the consequences for the broader function of the EEA 2010. The decision of the Lord Ordinary in the 4 Women Scotland v Scottish Ministers number 2 was upheld, as it is a large part of the inner house. It is not for the EHRC to determine the meaning of sex in the EA10. That is for the courts to do. However, we consider it to be a significant and many of the problems we are identifying as leading to the incoherence and absurdity in particular operation of the ER10. If serious sex is interpreted as adopted or expressly resigned by the HRC as grounds for urgent consideration of legislative amendment. That explains the EHRC's understanding that sex in the EA10 as civic sex meaning a person who pursuant to Section 9(1) and 2 of the GRE 2004, and continues that it has not been straightforward for service providers and employers to apply the law, including in the areas which address sports and health services. The EHRC concludes that if sex is defined as biological sex for the purposes of ER10, this would bring greater legal clarity in 8 areas. 8 areas of the discussion as follows: numbers added. 1. Pregnancy and maternity. As things stand, the protections in the EA10 for pregnant women and new mothers fail to cover the trans men who are pregnant and whose legal sex is male. This defines sex as biological sex would resolve this issue. Freedom of association for lesbians and gay men. If sex means legal sex, then sexual orientation changes are requirement of the GRC. Some trans women within the GRC becomes legally lesbian, and some trans men within the GRC become legally gay men. As things stand, lesbian support groups, for instance, may have to admit trans women with a GRC to tend to women without a GRC, or trans women or to trans women who had obtained a GRC. On a biological definition, is continued restricted membership to biological women. Is everybody still there, or is Charles gone off?
No, I'm still here.
All right.
I was reading something. Sorry. Then like I'm not understanding. Like all of this is going over my head. I'm not understanding it. I don't have soda to translate.
Basically, I'm angry and Eck was retarded.
Yeah. Hold on, let me ping my translator. Give me a second.
Where we at?
Translator.
Freedom Association of Men and Women, that's things standard. Women's Book Club, for instance, may have to admit a trans woman who had obtained a GRC on the biological definition that restricts membership to the biological women. Positive action. Currently, trans women with a GRC could benefit from women-only shortlists and other measurements aimed at increasing female representation. Trans men with a GRC could not. Trans men with a GRC could not. A better definition of sex would correct this perceived abnormality.
My translator is busy, unfortunately. That's why Soda's not here.
Oh well.
Occupational requirement employers are sometimes permitted to restrict positions to women or to men. An employer can, for example, require a warden in a women's prison or girls' hostel to be female. At present, such a role would be open to trans women under the GRC, but not to trans men with the GRC. A biological definition of sex would correct this perceived abnormality. I really don't see the perceived abnormality there, but fair enough. Single sex and separate sex services, such provided, are sometimes permitted to offer services to sexes separately or to one sex only. For instance, the hospital might run several women's only wards at present. A starting point is that a trans woman with a GRC can access women's only services. A service provider would have to conduct a careful balancing exercise to justify excluding all trans women. A biological definition of sex would make it similar to make a woman's only ward space for biological women. 7 sports, 8 data collection. The 3 areas identified by history where suggest that changes to a biological sex interpretation were more ambiguous and potentially diverse risk. The following will be discussed in areas further below. Section 9, Equal Provision, Pay Provision Act, direct sex discrimination, and indirect sex discrimination.
How do you indirectly discriminate against somebody?
How do you what?
How do you indirectly discriminate against somebody?
By giving them the shittiest job in the company.
Ah,
I'm hiring a black man, but he's going to work in the middle room. He's never going to get to the top floor.
okay.
Then you're discriminating because you're hiring him, but he's never going to make executive.
Okay, that makes sense.
What's this one? Right, come to the last section now. Charles, give us a hand reading this bit first, please. Oh, you still
Page number.
84, section 22. This is a summary of their reasoning.
Okay, let me get there. 84. That's 83, 84. I'm gonna hate this, aren't I?
Probably, yeah.
Let me rule a fact quickly, just so I have nicotine on hand as I fucking read this. I have a slumbering suspicion it's gonna be necessary for my mental health.
I may have discovered. I might be. I'm about to do something extremely stupid, but it could also work.
I may have discovered a new addiction. It's called self-harm.
I'm not gonna make that. I can't make that joke.
Yeah,
I'll
you
get in
can't
trouble.
make that joke, can you, gamer? Yeah, no, you can't. No. Frank, I'll be honest. Me making that joke was a little risky.
Yes, because I'm the poor, remember?
Yeah.
Hold on, no, Scotty. I'm going to send you a picture of something that I've just done.
Given the context of the conversation, that's deeply concerning. But okay, buddy.
No.
Remember, I'm not a medically qualified doctor anymore, but I'll help the best I can.
No. Or so you remember those offices? Because I wear when I go to bed, right?
Right.
Check your DMs. Once it sends.
I say there's fucking nothing there, cunt.
It's sending.
When? There we go. What the fuck? Oh my god.
You can't tell me it doesn't kind of look cool.
I swear to God, if I hear you scream in 15 minutes' time, me bollocks. I'm not even gonna be mad. I'm just gonna be disappointed. Like, gamer, at this point, if you end up accidentally castrating yourself, frankly, it's gonna be on yourself.
I have no context to this conversation.
He strapped a knife to his fucking wrist brace.
Listen, it looks cool. Leave me alone.
I work with children. I work with children and cats. My week this week has consisted of herding children and small cats. And you know what? Even then, that might be an insult to cats, because at least cats, once in a blue moon, do as they're told.
You did buy the special bus.
Summary of our reasoning. We are aware that this is a long... You don't say. It may assist, therefore, if we summarize our reason. Fucking attempt to, I beg of you. The question of the court is a question of statutory interpretation. We are concerned with the meaning of the provisions of the Equalities Act 2010 in light of Section 9 of the GRA, paragraph 2. Parliament, in using the words man and woman in the SDA 1975, referred to biological sex. In 1999, regulations enacted in response to PVS create a new protected characteristic of person intending to undergo or undergoing or having undergone gender reassignment. 99 regulation did not amend the meaning of man or woman. The GRA 2004 did not amend the meaning of man and woman in the... Section 9, 2004, this applies to rule in Section 9 of the Act where the words of legislation enacted before or after the commencement of the GRA are on careful consideration, interpreted in their context, and having regard for their purpose to be inconsistent with that rule. It's not necessary that these are express words as applying the rule in section 9 of the GRA, or as such, this application arises by necessary implication as the legality principle does not apply. The context in which the Equality Act 2010 was enacted was therefore that the SDA 75 definitions of man and woman refer to biological sex. Trans people had to protect characteristics of gender reassignment. The A 2010 is an amending concept statute and enacts group-based protections against discrimination on the grounds of sex and gender reassignment, imposes duties of positive actions. It's important that the Equalities Act 2010 is interpreted in a clear and consistent way so that groups which share a protected characteristic are identified by those on whom the Act imposes obligations that conform those obligations in a practical way. There is no indication in relevant secondary material that the Equalities Act 2010 modified in any material way the meaning of man and woman or sex from meanings in the SDA 1975. Interpreting sex as certified sex would cut across definitions of man and woman and thus to protect characteristics of sex in an incoherent way. How is it it would create... That's a fucking word. It would create heterogeneous heterogeneous groupings. That's a word. I don't like that word.
It's where you don't hear very often.
As a matter of ordinary language, decisions relating to sex discrimination, especially those relating to pregnancy and maternity, and protection from risks specifically affecting women, may be interpreted as referring to biological sex. Correct. We reject the suggestion of the inner house that the words can bear a variable meaning, so that in the provisions relating to pregnancy, turning to equality that is referring to biological sex only, but that's where it refers to certified sex. Wait, hang on.
What?
We reject the suggestion that the words can bear a variable meaning.
Yes.
So that in the provisions relating to pregnancy and maternity, the Equalities Act 2010 is referring to biological sex only.
Yes.
While elsewhere it refers to certified sex as well. So no, you are agreeing that it changes meaning upon context. What do you mean you disagree when you're agreeing? What are you talking about, you fucking Dilberts?
No,
You can't say you disagree then actively agree.
I was about to say they've just contradicted themselves.
No, not. What I'm saying is the courthouse said that biological sex, but do practically woman refers to biological sex, but elsewhere in the division it remains by certified sex. What they're trying to say is
No.
Yeah.
What that says is we reject the suggestion of the inner house that the words can bear a variable meaning.
yes.
We reject the idea that based upon context, the meaning of the word can change. And then immediately say, however, it can absolutely do that.
I'll give you an example here, because it's an example they're going off here.
Yes, they give the example of, in cases, like, because we disagree, in cases of pregnancy and maternity, it refers to sex.
But elsewhere in the document elsewhere the saying refers to certified sex rather than biological sex.
Exactly. So they're saying, in some contexts, it can be a variable fucking meaning of the word. While saying that they don't agree that it's variable.
No, that's in the in-house. This is the in-house interpretation of the word sex. They're disagreeing with.
No, it's not. They're saying we disagree that it's variable because of this reason. But elsewhere it does refer to. So they're actively contradicting themselves.
No, let's give it a quote from the in-house here.
No, it's not. The quote ends. In fact, it doesn't even begin to quote. There is no quote marks. They're talking bollocks, mate.
Yeah, quote marks is section 89, paragraph 189 and 197.
It's still not quoted. Because they haven't quoted, they haven't made the quote annotations to indicate a quoting. Outside of referential data, they are not quoting, meaning they are completely contradicting themselves. Because once again, this was clearly written by a 12-year-old. But no, that's an insult to 12-year-olds. 12-year-old me could have formatted that correctly. And 12-year-old me was brain damaged.
Can you imagine you being a law professor, this come across your desk?
12 years old.
Gamer, if I was a law professor and this came across my desk, I would track down the student who submitted it and I would hit them. I would hit them with a very large book.
With dictionary.
No, I'd probably hit them with the fucking the ad inferatum id mactorium in the skull very quickly. The worst part is that's a real book.
It is, yes.
It's 4,582 pages of bollocks because it's all in Latin and not very well translated Latin at that.
Yeah, it's even worse than Pig Latin, to be honest.
Yeah. Gender reassignment and sex are separate bases for discrimination and inequality. The interpretation favoured by the EHRC and Scottish ministers would create two subgroups within those who share the protected characteristics of gender reassignment. Given that trans persons who possess a GRC giving trans persons who possess not given, right, that's the issue. Giving trans persons who possess a GRC greater rights than those who do not. Correct. Those seeking to perform their obligations under the Act would have no obvious means of distinguishing between the two subgroups to whom different duties were owed, particularly since they could not ask persons whether they have obtained a... Actually, an employer is allowed to ask you if you've gained your GRC under the correct circumstance. So once again, the Supreme Court's proving they haven't actually read any of the information they've made a decision on.
No, under the 2018 they can't.
Actually, they can under the right circumstance, such as if as an employer, your employee comes to you and informs you that they are transgender, you are allowed to inquire whether or not they have a GRC or not. However, you cannot use the answer to that question as basis or grounds for a decision to be made.
Yes, but unless they volunteer the information first, you can't say, are you an actual woman or a trans woman? Whereas now under this ruling, that question now has to be asked.
Yes, which is bullshit. Because again, for the very reason that the rule was put in place of you can't ask, it now opens the door wide for discrimination against transgendered people.
Yes.
That interpretation would also seriously weaken the protections given to those with the protected characteristics of sexual orientation. No, it doesn't. For example, by interfering with the ability to have lesbian-only spaces and associations, paragraphs 204, 209. Once again, it proves the government hasn't bothered to read the dictionary or any law fucking journal whatsoever about what the word lesbian means. There are other provisions whose proper functioning requires a biological interpretation of sex. That's... Right, I'm going to say this once and I'm never going to say it again on this episode. Sex, the word, refers to the biological definition.
Yes.
Gender refers to the identity.
Oh, okay.
Please stop using the two interchangeably for the love of God. Like,
I agree with you.
Once again, it is proving that the Supreme Court clearly doesn't have a fucking clue what they're talking about. Because if they did, they would have made the same decision as all the other Supreme Courts in the country to not touch this case because it's a redundant case. All the Supreme Court has proven here is they haven't done any research before coming to a decision. They've read two pieces of paper, neither of which were fucking relevant to the case.
Well, it's pretty rare letter from the EHRC.
Fucking, I swear to Jesus, These include separate spaces and single-sex services, including changing rooms, hostels, and medical services. Communal accommodation. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but did it not earlier say that excluding someone due to their gender identity from something such as, say, a medical service was a form of discrimination?
I think so.
Yes, but it was also discrimination that could be allowed to pass for women-only services. The Equalities Act.
Correct, but the Equalities Act also laid out that discriminating against someone because of their gender-required status from things such as medical services was an unlawful example.
Yeah, I think the example they're going to use here is like a trans person wouldn't need to go to like an OGYN or something like that.
True, but a trans woman would need to go to a gynecologist, for example, which now gynecologists are allowed to just say, no, you're not allowed because you're not a woman and this is a woman's service.
Yeah.
Well, the fuck done, British government. You've made it harder for trans women to get vital medical assistance. Congratulations. You're fucking stupid.
Also, Fat Man T, this is what I did earlier that Scotty was mad about. I think it's cool.
Similar incoherence and impracticability arise in the operations of provisions relating to single-sex characteristic associations and charities, women's fair participation in sport, the operation of public sector equality duty, and the armed forces. It is striking that the EHRC has advised the UK government of the problems created by its interpretation of the Equalities Act 2010, which include many of the matters discussed above, and has called for legislation to amend the Act as of coherence and practical problems to which that interpretation gives a rise, clear pointers at the right. No, I'm not even going to bother. I don't have time. The interpretation of the Equalities Act 2010, i.e. the biological sex reading, which we conclude is the only correct one, does. Sorry, Let me get my fucking quadruple seeing glasses, so as to ensure I did not have a stroke and that I can perceive the bullshit properly. The interpretation of the Equalities Act 2010, i.e. the biological sex reading, which we conclude is the only correct one. So, okay, so I did read that correctly. Does not cause disadvantage to... Right, how can you say it does not cause disadvantage to trans people when you have actively lined out three paragraphs higher all the ways in which it does? You... Okay.
Almost there.
I'd like you to know something, Fat Man T.
You hit me?
No.
You hate the government.
We already knew that. Fat Man T, I'm a little bit mad at you for making me sit through this. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I feel it.
Like, you saw how angry I was the other day
Yes.
when the decision was announced. And I'm a little bit mad. I'm a little bit mad at you over this. But at the same time, I understand why we're here. So while I'm mad at you, I'm not gonna hold it against you. But I am mad at you.
I know. But
I'm almost as mad as the time you fucked with one of my safe foods.
please.
Hold on.
I'm not quite
Hold on, I need to
as
hear.
mad as I was that day, but it's a close second place right now.
Hold on. Can I hear that story? What happened?
He made my baked beans, which is one of my safe foods, and he made it spicy, and he didn't tell me beforehand.
No, I made my own beans. I just didn't eat half of them. You went and picked up what was left.
No, what happened was I came downstairs, you said, hey, I made beans, have some if you want. And I went, oh, cool, beans. And then I had a spoonful of beans, and they were spicy. Because you are a bastard. I'm glad you enjoyed the story of me having a minor autistic breakdown because the flavor didn't flavor the way I anticipated it to.
No. No. All I can see is the headline. A man killed over spicy beans.
Like Echo, imagine it like this, right? Imagine I handed you a bar of chocolate, right?
Yeah.
I said, there you go, Echo. That bar of chocolate is for you. You open the bar of
Yeah.
chocolate, you bite down, and I've hidden a ghost chili pepper in the chocolate.
Okay. Okay, I'd be pretty upset.
Yeah, imagine how your body would physically react to chocolate. There's spice in there.
Okay.
You understand why I was pissed off about that?
Yes, but I
Like-
still think it's a bit funny.
Like, I know what beans taste like. I know the texture of beans. It's a very safe thing. I need to be informed if it's going to be changed. I was not
Yeah.
informed that it was changed.
But just
My
have-
body
that
didn't enjoy this.
bear in mind that was like what? 2 weeks after you moved in?
I said this was about 8 months ago, and I'm still mad about it. I'll never not be mad about it. Like Frog, Echo. Sorry, you don't understand. I phoned his sister about it.
Yes.
I literally got my phone out after my body recovered, and I phoned his sister to whinge at his sister because he tried to poison me.
No, I know you might not go through this document, but I think, like say, I've went through my entire news feed and over YouTube, all over the place, and other stuff, and I've seen no one else actually dig into the law. All going off is like what Sky News said and shit like that.
I've seen a couple videos like so far of like some news sources, like not going like in depth, but kind of giving like a layman's terms. Here's roughly what it means, but like with a lot of the legal jargon fucked off.
Yeah, probably that's what legal jargon is needed.
I disagree. I honestly, if you gave me 2 weeks and some like a mild concussion, I could probably translate it.
Where are we up to?
XVIII. I no longer remember my Roman numerals, so that's XVIII. That's 17.
17, yes. So perfect, 17.
Right back.
Okay. So with or without a GRC, in the light of case law interpreting the relevant provisions, they would be able to invoke the provisions on direct discrimination and harassment and indirect discrimination. A certified sex reading is not required to give them those protections. Sure. We therefore conclude that the provisions of the Equalities Act 2010, which we have discussed, are provisions to which Section 9.3 of the GRA 2004 applies. The meaning of the terms sex, man, and woman in the EA 2010 is biological and not certified sex. Any other interpretation would render the Equalities Act 2010 incoherent and impractical to... No, it wouldn't, you fucking idiots.
Yeah.
It really wouldn't. I've read it. It doesn't. You're just stupid.
I mean, the year 2010, I looked briefly over the document because I've got it saved.
Oh yeah, no, it's a pile of shit. It's horribly written, but like saying it's incoherent or impractical to operate in this particular fucking document is downright laughable.
The problem what I would have just done for this is I went through the ATAC and changed where biological sex is needed to male or female.
Yeah.
And leave the rest the fuck alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would take it 2 interns about 5 days to fix. You know, instead of this, what is it, 3-year-long battle?
Yeah, it's about that, yeah.
Last section, section 23, individual of Scotland government guidances.
Invalidity of the Scottish Government's guidance. For all these reasons, we conclude that the guidance issued by the Scottish Government is incorrect. A person with a GRC in the... Sorry, real quick, right? How can the guidance given by the people that writ the fucking law be incorrect? How is the interpretation of the people that wrote the fucking document, how is their interpretation of the document incorrect? They literally wrote it!
Because they said so.
Like, genuinely, this would be like saying William Shakespeare's interpretation of Romeo and Juliet is wrong. Motherfucker, he wrote it. Swear to God. A person with a GRC in the female gender does not come within the definition... Yes, it does. For the purposes of sex, yes, it does. Of the Equalities Act in turn means the definition of woman in Section 2, which Scottish Commission accept must bear the same meaning as the term woman in Section 11 and 212. They never said it doesn't. It's limited to biological. No, it isn't. I include trying with a GRC because it's so limited. It's not stray beyond the expected exception permitted in Section L2 of Schedule 5 of the Scotland Act into reserved matters, therefore constructed in the way that we have. Yes, it is. Current Scottish Parliament can operate to encourage women in senior.
Did Scotty just fucking die?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
That's where we are
Wait a
now.
minute. Wait a minute. Nah, you know what? Fuck paragraph 267. Fuck the whole section. We're going to section 24, conclusion.
Yeah, we allow the appeal.
We would allow the appeal. So, you go through all of that jargon bullshit. You make a ruling on a decision of, yep, this is what a woman means. And in your conclusion, the conclusion isn't, this is the ruling, and that ruling is that this is what a woman is. Under conclusion, the only thing the Supreme Court thought would be fucking important to put under conclusion is, we would allow them to appeal.
No, we allow no. This is an appeal by the For Women Scotland
Yeah!
against the court, who made a decision to ruled against them.
I know exactly what appeal they're talking about. What I'm saying is, why is that the only thing under conclusion?
I have no idea.
Like I can think of a lot of things that would apply to conclusion, such as the new definition as defined above of what a woman is. Given that's the entire point of the piece of paper.
Yeah. Now, now, say, okay, the Supreme Court said pretty much all day, yesterday and today, that this is not a win for the feminists or for the trans people. They keep saying that.
It's not a win for the fucking the Women for Scotland group, and it's not a defeat for the trans community, but it absolutely is both of those things, because you've given the Women for Scotland group what they want and removed rights from trans people, which to interpret the decision as anything other than a loss to the transgender community, quite frankly, is just moronic.
Yeah, it's insulting to the trans women. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Now, Famanti, I've sent you a little video to pull up, because it's the only evidence I need for my concluding statement.
All right, this guy.
Basically, the reason this decision was made is because the Supreme Court is basically consistent of tired old men who are probably members of the Conservative Party. This video clip is all the evidence I need.
It follows that the interpretation of...
Frankly, that still frame is all the evidence I need.
Yeah, I remember we watched this live after the event. It's when you a sword slammed my heavy bag into the concrete floor several times.
Yes. Now, notice how this man is obviously over the age of 50. Notice how the woman directly behind him is clearly over the age of 30. How the gentleman, who you can see the bottom half of the face of, appears to be probably over the age of 30. The man, I'm assuming man beside him wearing a trench coat for some ungodly reason, is likely over the age of 40 due to the fact of wearing a fucking trench coat in public.
That was a woman, actually.
I'm genuinely impressed by that. I didn't know women were that fucking fashion unconscious.
We knew what
I thought I was the only person left on planet Earth willing to wear a cloth trench coat.
It is.
This image of the...
Yeah, that entire front row, those are the representatives for Women for Scotland. Notice how not a single one of them is under the age of 40.
You know, that whole crowd is for Women Scotland. Correctly.
Not a single person who was involved in this case was over the age of was under the age of 40. I'd also like to point out, at no point was the opinion of a trans person consulted during the decision-making process or during any of the fucking news coverage so far. I'd like to make that abundantly clear to everyone involved. No one fought to get the thoughts, feelings, or opinions of a member of the transgender community regarding this decision before making it or after it had been made and announced?
I haven't found a single one that's like even talked to a trans person yet. You know.
Now, people at home, you could very well look at this episode and look at that statement and say, well, that's mighty hypocritical of you because you're not talking to a trans person. Our resident trans person who would be willing to come on the show is fucking busy. That's why.
Yeah.
If they weren't busy, by God, would we have them here right now? And I'd be apologizing profusely for making them listen to this. Also, hello.
Also, hi, Roman.
Well, welcome to the show.
Roman, did you see what I did, Roman?
No, what did you do that was retarded, Echo?
Look in IRL pics in my server.
He strapped
I did.
to his fucking wrist brace.
It looks cool. At least I think it looks cool. Fuck you.
You were a moronic squiggle who's going to cut his own bollocks off in his sleep because you're undoubtedly going to forget.
What are you trying to do? Some like Assassin's Creed type shit?
I took it off, Scotty, you penis. I'm not that dumb.
I want to meet your madre. Have an ass.
Beg to differ, Echo. Like, I genuinely believe you are that fucking stupid.
Now, for people watching this at home, I have put the link to the entire document in the description.
Yeah, if you feel like hurting yourself, go ahead and read it.
Giving yourself some permanent brain damage.
Lord knows, the brain cells that have been wasted this evening reading it, I'll never get them back.
I think my life remaining brain cell killed itself listening to all this.
The rat man
Like-
coming.
Like, frankly, I've lost years off my lifespan reading that.
The rat man coming. Wait,
I've
what do
taken-
I have? What do I have in here that I don't have in SV? In my Scarlet version.
What the fuck are you talking about?
I don't know what he's on
My
about.
Pokemon.
Okay, random. but never mind.
Ketchup.
Fuck it, I don't care anymore. Talk about Pokemon. I don't give a shit anymore. Fuck it.
Did you know that Vaporeon?
Shut the fuck up, Echo, before I brutally murder you with your wrist gauntlet.
Ah, fuck.
What's my team currently, actually?
Back down now. I don't need it.
I haven't played this version in so long.
At this point, I'm on team burn it the fuck down. I don't know about you lot.
Okay, I got Wooper, Rald, Palmy, Staravia, Diglett. Why do I have a Diglett,
Good for
bro?
you,
Oh,
pal.
no idea what how Diglett.
Yeah, why would you have a Diglett?
Oh,
I
I
don't
still
know
have
how
to
far-
fight. I still have to fight Brassius. I forgot about that.
So, in conclusion of that document, Supreme Court's
The
an
British
arsehole.
government.
That's the thing, it's just... Words feel, Joe said. The problem for you Americans is this now gives Trump an excuse to try and do the same trick.
Yep. Not that Trump realistically needs a fucking excuse, but he's got one now.
It gives him an argument the Supreme Court he could try and use against it.
Yep.
And that. He's always saying that DIA bill. Because he's having an argument with, he threatened to defund, force Harvard to pay taxes now. They refuse to go along with his bullshit.
I saw something about that.
Harvard is in the university.
Yeah.
Yeah, good luck getting those cunts to pay tax.
Hell, but Harvard still owes me my foreskin.
What?
What was that?
Fuck? Is it? What the fuck did you say?
I said Harvard still owes me my foreskin.
Oh,
Ah, so it's unhinged nonsense then.
I didn't know Harvard had a medical school. I won't lie to you.
Only thing I've got an interesting little bit of news is the Snow White movies is suing the Minecraft movie.
What?
I don't care.
Hold on, no, I care. Why?
Apparently because Jack Black made fun of Snow White in a press conference somewhere down the line.
It deserves to be made fun of. It was shit.
So it kind of started off with now kind of suing both Minecraft movie and Jack Black personally.
Yeah, good luck. His statement was protected under free speech. Get fucked.
Yep. Besides, so a movie sucked worse than. Didn't it suck worse than the Dragon Ball Z movie or whatever the fuck it was?
Yep. It literally has a lower rating than Dragon Ball on Rotten Tomatoes. Not to tell you how fucking forgiving Rotten Tomatoes has been over the last fucking 4 years.
I've got the Dragon Balls.
If even Rotten Tomatoes is willing to give it fucking 3% rotten, both in terms of user reviews and fucking like professional reviews, you know something's wrong with it.
Because it didn't even China didn't save it.
Well, China was never going to save it anyway. It's a Brothers Grimm tale.
Yeah, but Disney films generally do okay in China.
They're hit or miss.
Okay. So what do we want to do next? I've got Visible Ending. Like funny?
No.
No.
I can't bring myself to laugh. I'm genuinely too angry to feel joy.
That's pretty much all I had for tonight anyway. We've covered that document.
That's all, folks.
Does anyone
Your
got anything-
mama.
Does anyone got anything else they want to add?
Penis blast?
I'm gonna let that slide because you weren't here for the context of the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
All right.
It was a rough one.
Yeah.
What time is it? It's 11 o'clock. We've gone up just over 2 hours. We can end it there if you want, Vegas.
Yes, please.
There you go. Perfect. Good night, everyone. Good luck.
Good night.
Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you all on the next one.